Hello friends, let us resume our discussion on different techniques that are involved in the process of concentration. Now again we will start from the same point as we have been starting for our different lectures so far, that is the whole process of mineral beneficiation or the mineral processing can be categorized into two: liberation and concentration. Now we took an approach wherein we were able to smoothly move from one category of processes to another. So in liberation we have crushing and also grinding. From these crushing and grinding, the principal operation of which involves fragmenting the larger size particles into smaller ones, thereby liberating the locked in mineral particles from that of the surrounding impurities. We were able to smoothly move into the process of concentration, wherein the principal purpose is to separate the minerals from that of the impurities or the gangue. Now the different techniques that enabled the smooth transition from one process to another is that of screening and also classification. And through screening and classification, we moved into a concentration technique called as gravity separation. And within the framework of gravity separation, we considered or within the framework of separating the particles based on this density, we consider two different techniques, one involving jigs and the other involving table. And because of this particular movement of this table, that enabled us to separate the mixture of particles into concentrate, middlings and tailings. This overall approach or this technique is referred to as the shaking table technique. Now we saw in the previous lecture that the shaking table technique, it shares certain similarity or certain features with both the operation of jigs and also with classification and also screening. So there are certain features that we observe in the shaking table technique that is more or less observed in the other preceding processes or techniques that we have considered. Those include using concentration using jigs, classification and screening. Now, if you consider the similarity between the shaking table and the screening is the nature of the equipment. So the equipment that we use, the nature of the setup which we use for shaking table technique is more or less similar to that of what we observe in screening. And when you compare the similarity or when you consider the similarity between classification and jigs with that of the shaking table technique, the principal feature or the principal property or the principal behavior that enables us to distinguish this mixture of particles into concentrate, middling and tailing is the response of the particles to a particular flow of the fluids. Of course, the fluids are different when you compare concentration or when you compare the operation of jigs to that of classification. There is certain difference in the flow of the fluids, and there is a contrasting flow that we observe during the shaking table technique. Irrespective of it, the consideration of the shaking table technique prior to all the other concentration technique, it allowed us to smoothly move away from the liberation to that of concentration. Now we will get into the techniques that are more versatile, that are more rather can be used for a wide range of materials or wide range of minerals. So far the reason we considered the gravity separation prior to all the other techniques, before all the other techniques, the preference was given to gravity separation because it enabled us to smoothly move from one process to another process. It enabled us to move smoothly from the liberation to concentration. Now that we have entered into the discussion on concentration, now we are focusing on the unique techniques that are associated with concentration. Now let us move into another form of concentration technique, which can be widely used or which can be used for separating a wide range of minerals and their corresponding gangue or tailings. Now the versatility or the applicability of a particular concentration technique can be easily understood by this plot here or by this illustration here. So this illustration, if you could recollect, we saw while we were considering the concentration processes as a whole. So we were trying to get an overview of what a concentration process is. So what are the different techniques that are involved in the concentration process? What are the rather a simplistic understanding of, or rather just an outline of what are the principles that governs each of these techniques. And in that discussion, we introduced this particular illustration here. Now, we considered this particular technique of concentration for the sole purpose of establishing a good relation between the liberation and the concentration. So, establish a good transition, we consider this particular technique here. So, we began with this gravity separation because that established a good transition. Now, when you consider, so now our focus is to study one of the techniques that is rather versatile, that can be used for a wide range of minerals. Now, if you could see, or if you consider each of these techniques that are being included in this illustration, there is a certain degree of limitation that are associated with each of these techniques. So, there are certain degree of size limitations that are associated with each of these techniques. So, what you have here in the x-axis is the size of the particle that can be efficiently handled by each of these techniques. And if you consider each of these processes, or each of these techniques that constitute the concentration process, there is a size limit associated with each of these techniques. So, when you have a size limit associated with each of these techniques, so that technique can be used within a specific range only. Beyond that range, the efficiency is significantly lost. So, therefore, there is a limit imposed for each of these concentration techniques depending on what is the size of the particles these techniques can handle. So, a limitation for, so we saw that rather in a more elaborate manner for the gravity separation technique or the gravity separation approach, because in gravity separation the fundamental accelerating force is the force of gravity. So, there is a limit that is associated with this technique, because we don't want to introduce or we don't want to have the size of the particle having any influence on the separation process. What we need to have is the particles separating based solely on their density in the gravity separation. So, therefore, there is a limit that is imposed by the particles on the technique that we use, particularly in gravity or in the gravity separation. If you could recollect in our discussion on classification, we saw that there are certain particles or there are certain range or a critical size range below which the gravity cannot efficiently handle this particle because of their low sizes. So, therefore, we introduce an additional accelerating force, the one or the centrifugal force in case of the classification. So, gravity, because of its nature, because the accelerating force is rather constant, there is a limitation on that is imposed on the process based on the size of the particles. Now, when you consider the other processes as well, this illustration here, this depiction here shows that there is also for other, so this is for gravity, we saw it in a more elaborate way, we were able to convincingly understand why for gravity separation there is a size limit. Now, even though we have not looked similarly the other concentration technique like magnetic separation or electrostatic separation, even though we have not looked into these concentration techniques separately, it is possible for us to understand from this depiction alone, without getting into the principles that are governing these different techniques, these different separation techniques, even getting into these nuts and bolts of this technique. Just by this depiction alone, we are able to understand that each of these techniques, they have a specific size range below which adopting this technique will not be that effective. However, when you consider this particular technique at the bottom of the illustration, that is flotation, when you consider or when you look into the particles range, the size range of the particles that cannot be handled by each of the technique or each of these individual techniques, and compare it with the flotation, you would observe that the size range that cannot be handled by flotation is significantly smaller when compared to all the other techniques. So, let me repeat, what we essentially have in this depiction is we are illustrating the size range within which each of these techniques will be efficient. And when you consider the negative space, the size range for which this technique cannot be adapted, and if you quantify it, for instance, in case of conventional gravity separation, you have this much size range that cannot be handled by conventional gravity separation, and you have the combination of this much size range that cannot be handled by enhanced gravity separation. And the same goes for the magnetic and high intensity magnetic and the aerostatic. So there is a portion of the size range that cannot be handled by each of these concentration techniques, and this portion that cannot be handled, the size range that cannot be handled, is noticeably smaller for froth flotation. So that means when compared to all the other techniques, when compared to rest of the techniques, froth flotation is the most versatile one. You can use the process of froth flotation for a wide range of particles and a wide range of particles with wide size ranges. So if you consider the versatility of a concentration technique based on the size of the particle alone, then there is no doubt this illustration indicates that the froth flotation is the most versatile of all. It can be used for a wide size range. And there is also another interesting feature about the critical size of the critical size within which, or the range within which the froth flotation can be used, that we will look into it in few minutes or before the end of this lecture. So in this lecture, what we will be focusing on is we will dig deeper into the concentration technique of froth flotation. So that is what we will be considering in this lecture. So we move away from one technique of gravity separation to that of the froth flotation. Now the froth flotation process, again, it is, so one thing, even though we are getting into the individual techniques, even though we are talking or spending more time on the individual technique, one aspect we should not ignore is the similarity or the fundamental reason that we are categorizing all these techniques into one framework. So we are categorizing the froth flotation as a concentration technique primarily because our goal is not to separate particles based on their sizes, not to separate particles based on their density. We want to separate the mineral particles or the concentrate from that of the gangue or tailings. So this is our primary goal. Our intention for the froth flotation process is not to separate just by, it's not similar to that of the screening. It is not similar to that of the classification. It is similar to that of gravity separation, and here we want to separate the mixture of particles into minerals, that is concentration and gangue. Now, if you could recollect, the froth flotation process, the principle behind it is rather straightforward. What we essentially do in froth flotation processes, we begin by manipulating the surface of the particle. Here it is critical for us to understand that we are not changing the chemical composition of the minerals or gangue. We are merely exploiting the difference in the chemical composition of the mineral and gangue to manipulate their surfaces. So that is principally what is being done in the process of froth flotation. So the process of froth flotation, it uses the difference in the chemical composition of mineral and gangue, and correspondingly the surface of the mineral is manipulated in a way that is different from that of the gangue. And once this manipulation is established, then using appropriate techniques, the mineral is separated from that of the gangue. Now, the manipulation should not change the chemical composition of the mineral, because that will spoil the entire purpose, because we need to have the end goal of this mineral processing in our mind when we are planning this concentration technique. So supposing if you are introducing a chemical reaction that completely changes the composition of the mineral, what essentially we are doing is we are changing the mineral itself, meaning ultimately we won't be able to extract or treat the mineral in our desired way. So therefore we must be very much careful while operating or while we are employing the froth flotation technique to separate mineral from that of the gangue. So what we begin by doing is, in case of the froth flotation, we begin by manipulating the surface of the particles. So what we mean by manipulating the surface of the particle is we want to change the way these mineral and gangue they respond to water. So one similarity you can think of between the process of froth flotation and that of the gravity separation is both involves water, both involves fluid. However, there the response is based on the mobility or the movement of the particles. In case of the gravity separation, there it's the difference between it's the response of the particle to the flow of the fluid. However, here, since we are considering the surface or the interaction, or we are not exclusively considering the density of the particle, what essentially we are focusing on is the interaction between the particles and the water. So there it was in case of the gravity separation, it was the response of the particles to the mobility or the flow of the fluid. And here it is the interaction between the fluid and that of the particle, and here the fluid is water. As in most cases for the gravity separation, here the principle is, after manipulating the surface of the particles, we allow these particles to interact with the fluid, and this fluid is water. So owing to the difference in the manipulation, or the difference in which the surface is treated for the mineral and gangue, there is a different way these particles will interact with the water. We exploit that interaction and make and separate one category of particles from that of the other. Now, if you look closely, in case of the froth flotation, what we have so far not considered is, we have considered the particles which are solids. So we have the mineral particles and gangue particles. We have a mixture that acts as a feed. We have considered the fluid, that is water, that brings about the interaction, and this interaction enables us to separate one category of particles, this mineral, from that of the gangue, the concentrate from that of the sterling. So in this introduction, what we have not considered is the froth. And in the froth, what we essentially have is, we have a gas or a gas bubble that brings about the separation. So within the framework of the froth flotation technique, what we have is, we have a solids that interact with a liquid, and it is being separated by a gas. So essentially what we have in froth flotation is, you have combination of all the three major states of all the three major states interacting with each other, or they are operating in the same setup and enabling us to separate one category of particles, mineral, from that of the gangue. So that is how rather convoluted is from this consideration of the interaction. That is how rather the operation or the theory behind the froth flotation is built. So you have solids interacting with liquids and being separated by the gas. So that is how the froth flotation techniques operates. Now, the way the manipulation is achieved. So the initial step for the froth flotation, like we considered, is the manipulation of the mass of the surface. Now, the reason we are able to manipulate the mineral from that of the gangue is because we have a characteristic difference between the mineral and its impurities. So this characteristic difference in the chemical composition of the mineral and the gangue allows us to manipulate the surface of the minerals much differently from that of the gangue. So when you consider the concentration achieved by gravity separation, the criteria that governed the gravity separation was the difference in the density of the mineral when compared to that of the gangue. So when you have a significant difference in that of the density of minerals and that of gangue, that allows us to use gravity separation to separate mineral from the gangues. Now in this case, in case of froth flotation, what we essentially make use of is the difference in the characteristic chemical composition of the minerals and that of gangue. Now only when you have such or a considerable difference in the chemical composition of mineral and gangue, a composition that allows itself to be manipulated, only when, or in that case, you will be able to use the froth flotation technique. So each technique that we employ comes with its own criteria. In case of gravity separation, it is density. In case of froth flotation, it is the difference in the chemical composition. Now, the chemicals that are used for the manipulation of the surface of these minerals and gangues, these are usually chemical reagents, and these are referred to as collectors. in the framework of the froth flotation technique, the chemical reagents that are employed to manipulate the surface is referred to as the collectors. Now, the manipulation of the surface, what we mean by that is, so there are two critical aspects that we need to consider while discussing the froth flotation. One is the manipulation of the surface, of course, and the way the surface needs to be manipulated is, this manipulation should respond or should be based on the way the surface interacts with the water. So you cannot just if we are able to differently manipulate the mineral from that of the surface of the mineral from that of the gangue, that will in itself will not enable us to achieve the froth flotation. Just by if the primary criterion here is not to bring about different surfaces to minerals and gangue. The criteria here is we have to bring about different surfaces in minerals and gangue, and these surfaces should behave or should interact poles apart in a way that is totally contrasting to one another. This is what we refer to as, or when we achieve such contrasting behavior of these minerals and gangue in relation to the water, this we refer to it as the hydrophobic and hydrophilic interaction. So let me repeat, we saw that the criteria that allows us to use froth flotation technique is the difference in the chemical composition of minerals and gangues. Now, even though it is possible for, or even though the difference in the chemical composition allows us to manipulate the surface, just manipulating the surface will not enable us to separate the mineral from that of the gangue. We should appropriately manipulate the surface in such a way that this surface interacts in a contrasting manner with the water. The mineral surface should interact in a contrasting manner with water when compared to that of the gangue. So when you consider a contrasting reaction or contrasting interaction with water, it's not a reaction, and a contrasting interaction with water, then there is no better way of establishing a contrasting interaction other than hydrophobic and hydrophilic interaction. So when you want to establish two contrasting interaction with the water by establishing or by manipulating the surface, by engineering the surface, there is no better way of achieving that but ensuring that the surface, one of the surface interacts in a hydrophobic manner, the other interacts in a hydrophilic manner. So what we mean by hydrophobic and hydrophilic is that the hydrophobic, as the name indicates, phobia, fear, hydro, water, what we essentially do is the hydrophobic surface, it avoids any interaction with water. It wants to avoid any interaction with water and wants to avoid its surface getting wetted by water. It is not that much happy when it is wet with water, or when it gets wet with water. Whereas in case of hydrophilic response, or in case of hydrophilic interaction, this surface is readily, or it favors getting wetted by or getting in touch with or interacting with water. So we are establishing two contradictory interaction with water by appropriately manipulating the surface. So the mineral and the gangue, these surfaces are manipulated, and they are manipulated in such a way that if mineral is hydrophobic, if it hates getting wet, the gangue is rather hydrophilic and it enjoys getting wet. So we have established two contradicting behavior between mineral and gangue through by appropriately manipulating the surface. Now, this description of hydrophobic and rather hydrophilic is it's not that much technical. When I say the mineral particles that are, or the surface of the mineral particles that are hydrophobic in nature, they do not want to get wet, there is not much technicality associated with it. We don't really know why it doesn't want to get wet. And the same reason, when we say the particles or the gangue particles are hydrophilic in nature, we don't really know what is the reason behind it. So that's what constitutes the theory behind the froth flotation. One of the aspect of the theory behind froth flotation is rather to help us understand why, when the surface is manipulated, a a category of particles become hydrophobic and a category of particles become hydrophilic. Now before getting into that, let us understand how this hydrophilic and the hydrophobic surface is being established on the mineral and the gangue particles. So we saw that the chemical reagents, which are referred to as collectors, they established hydrophobic or hydrophilic surfaces on the mineral or gangue respectively. So by employing these collectors, we are able to establish an hydrophobic and an hydrophilic surface on the minerals and gangue separately. So if the mineral assumes an hydrophobic surface, the gangue assumes the hydrophilic. So and vice versa. Now let us see how this surface manipulation occurs. So one aspect of the theory of froth flotation is to understand how this surface manipulation occurs. Now, to put it simply, this surface manipulation during froth flotation is established by or is achieved by the process of adsorption. So, through the process of adsorption, the surface of the particles are manipulated. So what we mean by adsorption? So when you have a particle that is immersed in water or any fluid for that matter, and if it gets dissolved, this particle is being absorbed by the water. So when you have a particle and that particle is being dissolved, what it means is this particle is being absorbed by the water. Now on the other hand, if you have a similar particle and instead of this particle dissolving, some portion of the fluid is getting rather sucked in by these particles, then this we refer to as the adsorption. And here we do not have a complete adsorption, but only the surface sucks in some portion of the fluid, and that is what we refer to as adsorption. Now again, these differences, these terminologies, these definitions you would have learned in your previous semester and even before that as well. So nevertheless, the way we achieve or the way we manipulate the surface of the minerals differently from that of the gangue is through the adsorption of these collectors. But because of the difference in the features, the chemical features of the minerals and the gangue, this adsorption is different for mineral and the gangue, and correspondingly when we use an appropriate collector, we will be able to establish a different adsorption in mineral from that of the gangue, and when you establish a different adsorption in mineral from that of the gangue, you are correspondingly changing the surface of the mineral from that of the gangue. And when the collector establishes, the collectors that you use to introduce adsorption in the mineral establishes an hydrophobic surface, and that collector is not being absorbed by the gangue, then you leave the surface of the gangue as it is. That in itself means about a difference in the surface of the minerals from that of the gangue. So that is how we manipulate the surface of the minerals and gangue in the froth flotation process. So we use a chemical reagents as collectors to manipulate the surface, and the way the chemical reagent they manipulate the surface is through adsorption. That is, they interact with, they are sucked in by the surface of the particle, and thereby because of this interaction on the surface of the particle and the collector, we have a surface of a characteristic feature that is formed, and this characteristic feature is distinct for mineral and gangue, and thereby we have established a difference in the surface property of mineral and that of the gangue, and more specifically we have introduced a hydrophobic or hydrophilic surface for mineral and the correspondingly opposite surface for gangue. Now this adsorption can be achieved in two ways. One is a chemical adsorption, and the other is a physical adsorption. Now again, in case of chemical adsorption, what we essentially have is we have a minute chemical reaction that establishes a surface on the particle. So it could be mineral particle or it could be gangue particle, depending on the collector you use. This chemical reaction, it establishes, or the chemical adsorption is achieved through a small reaction, and through this reaction the surface of the particle is manipulated. Again, this reaction does not consume the whole of the particle, this just manipulates the surface. Now given that it is the chemical reaction that manipulates the surface of the particle, this is rather irreversible and it is employed largely to manipulate the surface of the gangue. Now, when you consider the manipulating the chemical composition of the particle, when given an option, like you are presented with a situation where one of these particles needs to be chemically manipulated, there is no other way. So in that situation, it is the best choice for us, the best option for us, the reasonable option for us is to ensure that it is the gangue particles that get chemically manipulated, that experience this chemical reaction, not the mineral particles, because it is the mineral particles that we have decided and it is the mineral particles that will be further processed. So therefore, it is rather reasonable for us to allow the gangue particles to change its chemical composition. So therefore, when we introduce chemical adsorption, when we attempt to manipulate the surface of the particles through chemical reaction, this chemical reaction which will introduce an irreversible change to the surface, in that case we usually prefer or we usually manipulate the gangue particles rather than the mineral particles. Now, if we want to if we want to change the surface of the mineral particles, if we want to manipulate the surface of the mineral particles, then in that case the chemical or the physical adsorption is employed. In case of physical adsorption, what is the way it is established is an electrostatic difference. A difference in the chemical charges, at least locally, is established, and because of this electrical difference in the electric charges, because of the electrostatic force that is established by this difference in the electric charges, we have an attraction that is established, and there is a layer of this collector that gets deposited on the surface of the mineral particles. Now, when you want to manipulate the mineral particle without any chemical reaction, as opposed to changing the surface of the gangue, if you want to manipulate, as opposed to changing the surface of the particle irreversibly, if you want to manipulate the surface of the mineral particle, then one way of achieving that is to locally establish on the surface alone, to establish difference in the electric charges, to establish a positive and negative charge. So the chemical reagents, they contribute a positive ions, and it should be possible for us to establish a partial negative charge on the minerals. So when you establish these contrasting electric charges, then because of the electrostatic force that is established, these particles get deposited on these ions of the collectors get deposited on the mineral particle, thereby manipulating the surface of the particle. So therefore, the critical step of manipulating the surface of the particles in flotation, it is achieved by the chemical reagents called collectors, and the way it is achieved is through adsorption. And in case of adsorption, there are two ways: chemical and physical adsorption. The chemical adsorption, it manipulates the surface through chemical reaction. So chemical reaction meaning not overall chemical reaction, but just rather a minuscule chemical reaction, a limited or a restricted chemical reaction that is confined to the surface. And this chemical reaction, even though it is restricted to the surface, even though it can be removed, because it is irreversible in nature, we ensure that this surface manipulation through chemical adsorption is confined to that of the gangue, is associated to that of the gangue, or it is directed to that of the gangue particles. Now, on the other hand, if you want to manipulate the surface of the mineral, we go for physical adsorption, where we establish a difference in the charges between the mineral particle and the collector ions, and because of the difference in these charges, that is an electrostatic force that is introduced, and because of this electrostatic force, these particles get attracted, and this attraction establishes a surface manipulation. And in this way, we are able to manipulate the minerals and the surface of the minerals and gangues. Now, once we are able to manipulate the surface of the minerals and gangue, now we have to choose the collectors in such a way that, because ultimately once you establish this adsorption, it is no longer the chemical composition of the minerals that interacts with the fluid, but rather it is the surface that you have manipulated that will be interacting with the water. So it is through the appropriate choice of the collectors you will be establishing hydrophobic or hydrophilic surfaces. So we consider a specific reagents that is based on the chemical composition of the minerals and gangue, and we employ appropriate technique, either chemical adsorption or physical absorption, to ensure that the surface of the mineral or gangue is appropriately manipulated. Now, the collector or the chemical reagents that manipulate the surface should be chosen in such a way that the difference should be contrasting, it should be hydrophobic or hydrophilic, and all these should be in relation to the interaction with water. Now, once we have satisfied all these conditions, then our mixture is ready for froth flotation. Now again, even though we have considered introducing the hydrophobic and hydrophilic surfaces, we still don't know how the hydrophobic and hydrophilic interacts with water. So what is the governing principle between, or the governing principle that dictates why certain surfaces are rather ready to interact with water, whereas certain surfaces shy away from interacting with it. Now the governing factor or the governing feature that ensures the hydrophobic or the hydrophilic nature, the governing principle, is the interfacial energy. So this is the governing feature that dictates if a given particle, after the surface is manipulated, is hydrophobic or hydrophilic. Now what we mean by interfacial energy being the critical or the fundamental feature. So when you manipulate the surface, you are not only changing the chemical. So we saw that we manipulate the surface through adsorption. It can be physical adsorption or chemical absorption, but ultimately the surface of the particle is no longer in its native state. You have changed the surface of the particle. Now what we mean by changing the surface of the particle is, in addition to changing the chemical composition, either through reaction or through physical absorption, you are adding in some foreign reagents, you are adding in some collectors. So in addition to changing the chemical composition on the surface of the particle, you are also changing the energy of the interface that separates the particles from that of the fluid. So because of the adsorption, now you are allowing some foreign particles to get deposited on the actual mineral or gangue. So you are allowing some foreign ions, maybe either through chemical reaction or through physical adsorption. You are allowing some foreign ions to occupy the surface of our mineral or gangue particles. So this foreign ion occupying the surface of the mineral or gangue particle, they not only change the chemical composition locally, but also they change the energy of this surface. And this energy of the surface is what we refer to as the interfacial energy. And this change in the energy of the surface is what is responsible for creating an hydrophobic or an hydrophilic surface. Now what we mean by that? So if you have a fluid, so in this case you have water and you have a particle. Now the interfacial energy between these two, let us refer to it as gamma, particle and fluid. So this refers to the interfacial energy between the particle and fluid. Now we saw that for flotation process, it involves all the three different states. It involves particle, it involves fluid, and it also involves air bubbles. Now let us then consider the interfacial energy between the particle and, say, there is an air bubble here. So the one in blue is the air bubble. So you introduce an air bubble and this particle surface interacts with the air bubble, and there is an interface that is between the air bubble and the particle. So originally you have a particle and a fluid, and you allow the particle to get manipulated, the surface of the particle to get manipulated. So because of the manipulation of the surface, you change the interfacial energy. Now you have an interfacial energy of this form. Now you introduce some air bubbles, you allow the particle to interact with the air bubble as well, and there is a section of this interface that forms a boundary between particle and the air bubble. So you have an interface between particle and the air bubble. Now the interfacial energy of the particle and the air bubble, let us assume it to be this here. So you have an interfacial energy between particle and the fluid. and you have an interfacial energy between particle and the air bubble. Now, when we say a given surface is manipulated in such a way that it is hydrophobic in nature, it hates being it aids getting in touch with water. What we essentially mean is the interfacial energy of the particle and air bubble are much less than that of the interfacial energy between the particle and fluid. So this is what theoretically we mean when we say that a given particle, a given surface of a particle is hydrophobic. So what hydrophobic means is that the interfacial energy between the particle and the air bubble or the air is significantly lesser than that of the interfacial energy between the particle and fluid. Now, if you consider a particle in a given state, it ultimately, so thermodynamic principle states that it ultimately wants to assume its lowest energy state. It wants to be in its lowest energy state. Now, supposing if you consider a setup like this, we have considered a setup like this, wherein major portion of the interface is in interaction with fluid, only a small portion of the interface is in interaction with air. But the small portion of this fluid, so this small portion here is of lower energy when compared to the larger portion here. It is of significantly lower energy when compared to the larger portion here. So essentially what would happen is the particle then would want to reduce its interfacial energy by avoiding the interaction with fluid. So let me repeat, when you have a particle in a system, a particle interacting with a fluid, the thermodynamic law states that the particle will tend to assume a lowest energy state. Now in this condition, when you have the interfacial energy between particle and air are significantly lower than the interfacial energy between particle and fluid, in this condition the particle is far away from the low energy state because a significant portion, a considerable portion of the interface experiences an interaction between the particle and fluid. A large portion of the interface is under this interfacial energy, the interfacial energy between particle and fluid. So when you want to reduce the energy of the particle, the easiest way possible is to allow the particle to interact with the air instead of fluid. Now instead of this case here, so instead of this case here, so instead of case 1, we have the surface that is manipulated by the collector ions. Now instead of the case here, if we have a case like this, again, instead of we have a case like this, wherein the interface is no longer between the particle and the fluid, but the interface is now largely between the particle and the air. So again, we have your fluid here. So the interface is no longer predominantly between the particle and the fluid, but now the interface is largely between the particle and air. Now when you compare the overall energy of case 2 to that of case 1, the overall energy of case 2 will be significantly lower than that of case 1. So therefore thermodynamically, case 2 is a more stable state when compared to case 1. So therefore essentially what we established is we have created a particle that avoids to interact with fluid, and ultimately, to put it in simplistic terms, we established a hydrophobic surface. So therefore the hydrophobic surface or the hydrophilic surface is established on the surface of the particle by appropriately manipulating the interfacial energy. Now if you want, like we've seen in this simplistic example here, if you want to establish an hydrophobic surface, then you need to ensure that the surface energy or the interface energy of the particle and water, the particle and the fluid, is significantly higher when compared to that of the other interfacial energies possible. Now here we are just considering the interfacial. So because we are talking in the context of froth flotation, we are considering the interfacial energy between the particle and air. So it can be anything, but the fundamental reason or the fundamental criteria or the fundamental feature that needs to be satisfied in order to achieve a hydrophobic surface is that through the appropriate surface adsorption, we need to ensure the interfacial energy of the particle and fluid is significantly higher, is considerably higher, is many magnitude higher than that of the interfacial energy between any other two, or the interfacial energy between the particle and any other medium. Now, once you have established such a difference in the interfacial energy, then you have essentially created a hydrophobic surface. So with this, I would like to wind this lecture up. So what essentially we have focused on is the starting step towards or understanding the overall froth flotation process. We have just gotten into we are just sticking to the theoretical aspect of the froth flotation process. We saw that we need to manipulate the surface of the particles to establish froth flotation. In order to achieve that, we use chemical reagents called the collectors. And these collectors, the way they interact with the particles to manipulate the surface is through adsorption. So it can be chemical or it can be physical adsorption. The chemical absorption, it irreversibly changes the surface of the particle. This is not desired for the mineral particles, so therefore we tend to use the chemical adsorption for the gangue. Now, when you want another way of manipulating the minerals, we go for physical adsorption, and the physical adsorption is largely based on the electrostatic force, and it is based on the attraction between the two different charges. So it is based on the collector ions assuming a different charge than that of the partial charge assumed by the particles, and this difference in the charges brings about an attractive force, and the collector ions gets deposited on the surface of the particles, and this can be removed after a while, and therefore this is a reversible change. It's a reversible adsorption, and this is usually used for manipulating the surface of our concentrate. And this manipulation through the adsorption, it brings about an hydrophobic or an hydrophilic feature by appropriately changing the interfacial energy between particles and fluid or particle and air. And once this particular change in the interfacial energy is established, then the thermodynamic principle of a system assuming its lowest energy value comes into play, and this thermodynamic principle will avoid or will ensure that the particle avoids any interaction with water. So this is the theory behind the few aspects of the theory behind the froth flotation, and we will continue with this in the subsequent lecture. Goodbye.